Happy New Year. Welcome to another episode of the Nosebleed AV Club, the first one of the year. We're coming to you from the past. This is going to be pre-recorded.
Ghost of Christmas Past.
Wait, is this the Spirited review?
Gotcha. It's Spirited again. We're not done.
My ever like longing hell.
We're not
Extended version.
done. So yeah.
Spirited Review 2, Electric Boogaloo.
So we're back. We made it to 2024. Today, we're going to be taking you back to 2015 because we're going to be discussing The Lobster, starring Colin Farrell. If you haven't heard of this movie, Mr. Voiceover Guy will let you guys know what it's about. So, VOG, take it away.
In a dystopian near future, according to the laws of the city, single people are taken to the hotel, where they are obliged to find a romantic partner in 45 days, or they're transformed into beasts and set off into the woods.
And that is The Lobster. And look,
Speaking of
it's
beasts.
Janice. He's been a little whiny baby right now. Sorry.
Colin Farrell, man, needs no introduction. The guy can act his ass off. That is one talented actor. Notable roles as of recent, the Penguin in the Batman movie. He was in a movie that I really liked. It was like a comedic role, The Gentleman. Have you guys ever seen that? He plays like a gangster dude.
The Penguin's actually the sequel to this movie.
I see what you did there.
No, what I do?
You know, animals. Rachel Weisz played the short-sighted girl. So the thing about this movie is not a lot of characters had names. I think only 3 total had names. One of them being Colin Farrell's character, and we'll get to the other one in a minute. But Rachel Weisz plays the short-sighted girl. She is the love interest in this movie. She's known for the Mummy movies, of course. Oz the Great and Powerful, and most recently, or not most recently, but more recently, Black Widow. Leah Seydoux is also in this movie. She plays a character we'll get into later on.
Known for Death Stranding.
Oh, is she?
Amazing role.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is so good in that game.
Damn. I just realized that. She better be in the movie.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Like, are they gonna like spend all of their budget on getting all those people back?
How could you not? But anyways, she was in the French Dispatch, Wes Anderson movie, and Inglourious Bastards.
Okay, so like all good things, we must begin at the beginning, right? So this movie, as you said, takes place in, it's either like a near dystopian future or it's just like an alternate reality, like uncanny valley type of situation where it's just very similar to the world we know today, but just slightly different. And how this movie is slightly different, how this reality is slightly different is the way we view relationships. So in this movie, single people are viewed very much as secondary citizens. This movie basically over exaggerates the societal emphasis that we put on relationships and being in relationships and having that like standard like not necessarily nuclear family like type of dynamic, but like, you know, like just that whole dynamic of being somebody with somebody and maintaining the norm of society, you know, and like if you're not with somebody, you're almost seen, you know, you're literally treated as a secondary citizen, and you know it could be seen as like, you know, rebellious or like breaking the law. How do you guys view the world created here? Because I don't know, like we can't really talk about the movie without first talking about the world that they established within this movie. Because I think that's like a big part of this movie, and especially like the rules that this movie lays out for the world that we are experiencing this story in. For me, like I definitely think that this type of world is very interesting. And I think it definitely isn't too far off from how we actually treat people in relationships versus people not in relationships in the actual world, and vice versa, right? Like how people who are single view people that are in relationships, right? Like this movie does a good job of basically establishing the two opposite ends of view here, where it's like, if you're single, you're a secondary citizen, you're not going to be happy, you're not going to live a normal life. Your life will be much harder because it's, as the movie says, easier to do things when there's two. You know, versus the single people and how they view people in relationships, where they view them as like very surface level. They view them as like, you know, basically just a mean, like it's not, there's not really any human. It's just because societal standards why you're in this relationship. And there's a part in the movie where they try to make that point like very apparent. And like they very much value their individualism so much that you're not even allowed to flirt with people. You know, you have, when you are a loner, you have to be a loner. You know, so I think the way that that Yorgos like establishes this world, like how do you even come up with something like this, right? Like I think it's very interesting. And then the whole concept of like turning them into animals, and that's why there are certain animals that exist in the world that are a lot of them, and there's certain animals that there's very little of them, because people are so basic or lack creativity or just choose what they think is the most convenient, easiest thing. You know, and I think this movie does a great job of having characters and making a compelling story where the characters in the story do not have any nuance to them at all. Another thing about this movie and the world that it establishes, and this is kind of a consistent thing in Yorgos's movies, if you've seen any of his other work, everybody speaks very matter of fact in this world. There's no nuance to anything that anybody's saying. They very much are just saying what they are feeling, what they want to say. And that's it. You don't have to read between the lines of what anybody's saying. There's no subtext. I thought that was these are all very interesting ways to go about this movie.
Everything that you kind of said, like, are things that I picked up on in the movie, obviously. A lot of, one, I don't really know the director. I don't know any of his work. So I didn't know that the, I guess, lack of emotion behind their speaking is maybe on purpose, or that's just his style. Because for me, not knowing the director, and if that's like a stylistic choice, to me, I thought it was something that was like on, I guess, a theme throughout just this particular film, as far as like lacking emotions and how that plays in the part of their seeking relationships without substance, really. So emotions are a very important part in relationships, right? So to have that also be removed from the film, essentially, I thought was on purpose, as far as like keeping on theme with that.
I've watched this Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is another movie he's done, which like that movie's like its own thing. That movie maintains the same kind of very dry way of speaking and very straight to the point. And then I haven't seen it, but from my understanding, his other movie that predates this one, I believe, called The Favorite, also features this style of like dialogue. So this definitely is like a stylistic choice in how he approaches a lot of his movies. I don't know if it's something that he does for every single one of his movies, but at least those three, I think it is the case.
As a stylistic choice, do you know if it's like on purpose, or rather connected to the storyline or something like that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's definitely a choice, just because, especially like to how it services the movie. So for example, in this movie, it's very much people are just kind of doing things because either society tells them that they have to do. There's like no thinking behind it. They're just acting, so when you're just acting, you kind of just say things per those actions. You don't really, there's not really any, like I said, like nuance to what you're saying. Like what you're saying is what you're saying, and that's it. There's no double entendres or anything like that. And then for like the Killing of the Sacred Deer, like without getting into too much about that movie, I'm just like, to me, it works in the same way, just in a different context. This is within the context of love, versus in the Killing of a Sacred Deer, it seems like it's more in the context of like spiritualism. I don't really like, it's really hard to explain that movie. That's probably one of the most difficult watches I've ever had. But I think in this movie, it also serves definitely towards the comedic effect. Like the way that characters speak is fucking hilarious to me, with just like how matter of fact they say things. And like it's just treated as normal.
Yeah, I did definitely find it to be humorous that it was like that. I wasn't sure at the beginning because like why is he talking like that? But yeah, so as a stylistic choice, I think it worked for what the theme was for the story. I guess I wanted to kind of say how they've taken themes that are very simple, and I think you've kind of mentioned this before when we're talking about
Swiss Army Man.
Swiss Army Man, taking really simple themes and then like running with it. And then so I feel like this movie did that as well. As far as like a society, you know, it's almost expected. Well, in some cultures, is expected of you to be in a relationship at a certain age, get a home, have kids, etc. And I feel like that's part of this. You know, as a society, we just kind of fall in the trap, if you will, of we need to hit these certain milestones in our lives, you know, to fit in, to be normal, right? And so that's what I feel like is what this movie was doing, but to the extreme. You know, so I thought that was very interesting that that's how they went about it, and like this was what the story was, and how it could very well be like this, you know, in the future. Who knows?
Especially like you take into consideration like things like arranged marriages that very much exists in this world, and like this isn't too far off from that. It just has a little bit more of an element of a choice, you know.
Yeah.
But like you kind of don't have a choice, because if you don't find a partner, you get turned into an animal. And it's very, it's even though this is a norm, it's still made very clear that everybody fears this outcome.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants that to happen to them, you know, to the point where people do like lie or try to force something out of convenience, you know, because of that fear. Like, what about you, Matt? What did you think?
I wanted to hear what you guys thought, because I don't care for this world. The rules are unclear. The movie sets up all these rules, never really tells us why. Why do they need to be paired, right? Why is this such a big thing? I understand that this could be seen as a commentary on society. Understand that. But at the same time, it's like, well, why are you telling me that these people need to be paired up? Why do they get sent to this place in particular to find a mate? And why do they only have 45 days? How did they land on that number? Like, why is it this the way it is? And is it only in this city? Is it the world, or is it just this isolated place? And you could say that they don't really need to. They just want to focus on the characters. Sure. But again, if you're establishing this world, I want to know why it is the way it is. And this movie, to me, underdelivered on the premise, because the whole thing, the whole grabbing point of this movie is, if you don't find a lover, you get turned into an animal. Okay, weird, but sure. They never show you once someone actually getting turned into an animal. And that bothers me, because it's like, well, how do we know for a fact they're getting turned into an animal? Right? Like, they're just assuming this is true. We're, as the audience, are just assuming this is true. A movie that showed us people getting turned into animals, which was not a part of the premise, sorry to bother you. Like, they legit showed me that, yeah, these guys get turned into horses with like fucking huge ass schlongs. In this, I never felt like the consequence was there, because they never showed it. They only teased it. That's the selling point of the movie, right? You get turned into an animal. Like, what the fuck? That's weird. Why? How do they even do that? It never once shows us that. And there's other things where it's like, Colin Farrell's character, he's at that hotel because his wife left him, right? So what are the rules? Are you married and then you can cheat? You can, you know, be with someone else? Like, is that a thing that you can do? Like, I thought you're being paired with this person, and you know what I mean? So then at that point, it's like, okay, but where do kids come from then? Are these just fucking orphans where parents like split up and die? Like
I don't know, like maybe it's just me, because like that's where I personally find a lot of the humor in it from. Is like, it's like,
sure,
you could cheat on somebody, but all they value is the fact that you're in a relationship.
Right.
If you get cheated on and you're the victim of adultery, you're now downgraded to a secondary citizen. And then the fact that they just assign kids to people because they feel like it'll strengthen their
Okay.
relationship. It's just like
So then at
it's all
what-
these things that we've been told all of our lives.
Got
right?
you. But at what point does that rule come into effect? Like, at what age is it like, okay, yeah, you need to find a partner. You need to go to this hotel and find someone, or we're going to turn you into an animal. At what age does that kick in? And also,
I
what's
had the same
happening to
questions
those?
because like the best friends, like I was
Exactly.
like, they're hella
They were
young.
young.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you here?
Exactly. They were younger. And I don't know how deep you want to get into it. I think I'm just answering the question about the world because this is a movie of two halves. There's just so many questions that don't get answered, nor does it deliver on. And it's just like, all right, what was the point of that? Like, cool, you got me in, and now I'm just watching this mid-ass movie.
So I mean, so I think it's maybe safe to say that like we probably can infer what your opinion of it.
So
then
I'll
is,
just
like,
I'll lightly spoil it. To me, it was hard not to compare this to Swiss Army Man because of the subject matter, because of the studio, and because of just it having a message about society, right, and like norms and whatnot. To me, this movie reminded me of Swiss Army Man, but without the toilet humor. You take out the toilet humor from Swiss Army Man and you replace it with the humor from Napoleon Dynamite. And that's what this movie felt like to me. Whereas very awkward interactions, just very dry speaking, very literal. You know what I mean? Just like people just talking kind of at each other more so than to each other. And I knew exactly how I felt after this movie. Whereas in Swiss Army Man, I had to like simmer, had to think about it. This, I knew where I stood with this movie.
What initially prompted us to watch this movie is that when we were talking about different things we could do, this one had you intrigued just based off of like how weird it was and just the plot. And I think you even watched the trailer and you were kind of
Oh no, I didn't
like,
watch the trailer.
Oh, you didn't watch the trailer. Okay, but like the premise intrigued you and the promise of it being like a weird movie because, you know, is kind of what reeled you in. So one, did this meet your weird movie criteria? And two, like, how did you feel about it?
Yeah. So I actually have a question. Was this a theatrical released movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was like it like came out twice. It was like released twice.
Oh,
like I think there was like
okay.
maybe like a limited release and then like a more, you know, worldwide release.
Okay. I had no idea. I thought it was one of those indie films, and that's kind of why I kind of forgave it a little bit with the weirdness.
I guess you could consider it like an indie film, right? A24.
I don't know.
Kind of
It's
that vibe.
I mean, it's definitely
Art housey.
got the vibe. Like, it's like, I mean, Colin Farrell's a pretty big name actor.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But I mean,
there's
other
big name actors in indie films all the time.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that's watching the movie. That's what I had in mind, that it was somewhat of an indie film. So I was kind of prepared and set my expectations that way.
So how did it do?
It like met my expectations of weirdness. I could understand what's going on without being like, what the fuck is this?
Did you need that? Did you need to understand? Like, it's like it feels like Matt like really came away with more questions, and that's kind of what
It's
his
not
frustration
necessarily
point is.
question. Like it raises questions, but my thing is what the fuck was the point of that? And like, why are they in the situation they're in? Like, why are the loners? Why are they in the fucking forest when we clearly see them infiltrate the city sometimes? Like, it's just like
I definitely had some of the same questions, and I was definitely just probably as confused as you were. But with the very limited knowledge of what the movie was about, and then having watched it, I guess I wasn't so, I don't want to say up in arms, because you're not up in arms about the movie.
no, it's
But
just
you
like,
just have a lot of questions, and I feel like I already knew I was going to have a lot of questions, and some of the questions I know are also just like things you just have to accept in the movie because of the world that they're in.
we only do that for holiday movies.
But for this movie, it's like it's very specific in the type of I guess way of living for these people that's already set up, that essentially to have them be like, these are the rules of our society in the very beginning of the movie would be weird.
Was the dialogue at all? Did it bother you guys at all?
Like how it was delivered.
Because I feel like that's the biggest barrier for a lot of people to get over is how the dialogue is delivered.
No, just because of Napoleon Dynamite, of The Office. Just
I
all
didn't
these,
even
like,
think of it that way, and now that you brought it up, I'm like, damn.
yeah, it's just dry.
Because I didn't
ass
particularly
humor.
like Napoleon Dynamite as far as like it being as funny as people thought it was,
Mhm.
specifically because of that type of delivery.
But it is what it is. Like, I think by this point, people were kind of desensitized to it. Like, it's just our generation's humor, I suppose, where we find that funny, that dryness, that just bluntness, that aloofness almost. It's just, it is funny in by its nature to us. The dialogue is one of the better parts of the movie for me. It's one of the two things I really enjoyed about this movie.
I definitely, to what Landon was saying earlier, do think that this is a movie that deserves multiple watch throughs, or at least if you were to maybe gain an appreciation for it, I think it would probably take multiple watch throughs. I'm not saying you have to. If you don't, if you're very much determined that it's not your cup of tea, then
So background,
like I think that is fair. Like I don't think I would necessarily say this is something you have to watch.
yeah. So my background with this movie is before we even when this came out on streaming, so many whatever years ago, probably around the time it came out, I gave it a chance because the premise was interesting. I don't remember how far I got because it was so long ago, but I did initially start the movie, stopped it at some point, never went back to it until we decided to do it for this podcast. So in total, I watched this movie like 2.25 times.
Yeah, this is probably my third or fourth time watching this movie, I want to say. And then Landon, you only watched it once?
Yeah, I only watched it once, but I'm down to watch it again to kind of understand a bit more. Because it's still the whole premise of the movie is still very intriguing to me. And after having read like articles of like explaining things, then I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of felt these points in the movie happen, and they happen for these reasons. And so I kind of wanted to, I guess, validate that what I thought.
Yes. So part of like, if I was to like recommend this movie to people, or if like I was to give like a tip for people that maybe would help them in their viewing experience of it. Again, I'm not saying a movie like needs that. Like if you are one of those people that feels like, why should I have to have a tip to watch a movie? I should just be able to enjoy it for what it is. Like that's fair. I totally understand. But I would just say this, like Matt was saying, this movie does just throw a lot of world building at you without any explanation. So you are kind of to just hit the ground running with it. I would probably say to people, like, just kind of take those for what it is. Like, don't necessarily think too much on that. Like, yeah, if you were to think about it, you could probably break apart the parts of the world building that don't make sense. But I would say more just kind of focus in on like the littler details of the world, like the inner workings of the world and how people function is really like the interesting part about this movie, and where a lot of the humor comes from. Things like sex, where there's a lot of taboo behind those things, and having sex with somebody, and like there's all this build up to it. It's treated very much like a non-thing here. People talk very freely about it. They talk very straightforward about it. There's a part where Colin Farrell's character and Rachel Weisz are just describing, like Rachel Weisz is describing the intimate sex that they have, but like in a non-intimate way. It's just very much like he bent me over and fucked my ass. Like
that was her dream.
Shit like that. What's up?
That was her dream. She had a dream about it.
Yeah, right. Like she's explaining this fantasy to us, but like in a very matter-of-fact way, where there's no embarrassment or no hesitation at all to just go into it. There's a lot of moments throughout this movie where it just handles that shit. It just talks about it. Like one of my favorite parts in the movie is like when he meets up with John, the limp guy, and John C. Reilly's character, the lisp guy, and they go out, and then there's no such thing as small talk in this movie. Like they just say everything and get straight to the point. And John C. Reilly is like, hey, did you see John's leg? Because he has like a weird leg that, you know, that it reveals why he has a limp later on. And then Colin Farrell's character just looks like, oh yeah. And then nothing else. Nothing
Next scene
else is said. That shit gets me every fucking time. And then there's the other scene where John's explaining how his mom came there years ago and failed, and she turned into a wolf, and he would go to visit her every day. And then one time he like really wanted to get close to her, and he gets attacked by all the other wolves. And he mentions that there were 2 wolves that didn't attack me. So I would imagine that my mom was one of those 2.
Yeah.
It's just like so fucking sad and so just straightforward. It's just fucking hilarious to me. So like the little things about like that, little details of how they just kind of rationalize things, and everyone is just so logical with how they view things. Like I think that's what creates the humor in this world, not necessarily the logic of the world itself, just the people and how they live within it.
How did his mom end up in the zoo? They released him into the forest.
She got
Well, he said that they shipped her to a zoo.
yeah.
How did
So
they
I don't know what the
determine that?
logic is behind. See, so here's the thing, right? Like what Matt's saying, like how do they decide who gets shipped off to the zoo versus who they just let off into the forest?
Also,
'Cause
who goes to the zoo to see wolves?
that's what makes it
There's
funny.
no
Dude.
wolves in zoos, but okay.
It's just so fucking. And then like there's like the part where she's explaining like how everybody just chooses to be a dog outright, so that's why there's an abundance
so
of
many
dogs.
dogs. I heard he's basic.
Or like, oh, make sure if you like were to choose something, you choose something that is as close to you as possible, because like a hippopotamus can never be with a camel. That would be preposterous. Because like, what's preposterous in this world, right? Like, it's just. Just shit like that, I think, is just how the movie it's almost like the movie purposefully is trying to like either contradict itself or just set up these really uncanny juxtapositions, I guess with that, let's like just full spoiler talk, like just give me your impressions of the movie, your full like impressions of the movie. Did you like it?
So-
Let's start with that.
I liked it more than I thought I was gonna like it.
Okay.
And like I said, I would watch it again. I do want to kind of just take it in more and really understand what's going on. I watched it with Nikki. So we kind of talked about it as it was happening.
Does she have your same penchant for like weird movies?
No. She was pretty much just like, yeah, what the fuck was this? What's the point of this?
Did she like it?
I don't think so. I don't know if maybe she was very neutral about it. I don't know. I guess a better question is, did she enjoy it? I don't think she did. I enjoyed it for it being an interesting movie. I like when movies make me think as well, right? So definitely this is one of those movies that did that. And having to kind of look beyond the very, I guess, basic theming in the movie, as far as they just need to get a relationship within a certain amount of days, and if not, they do turn into an animal. That's such a weird thing to have been like. That's the story of this movie. Like,
as if the movie wasn't weird enough, they also like that premise alone is weird enough, but then they also introduce like a Call of Duty ass angle where they go on hunts and shit.
I was like, what? When they said when they have to kill a loner, I literally thought that meant like they're loaning people's bodies. And like when we saw those bodies on the floor, I told Nikki, I was like, oh yeah, they're not dead. They're just like out cold. Technically they are, but they're gonna die.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, they're just loaning their bodies. Like, oh no, loner, like they're alone. I understood that later on. Let's see. And we did talk a lot about how they spoke in the movie. And I thought it was interesting because, like, for myself and Nikki, we work with people on the spectrum, and it's very spectrumy as far as like how they talk, just very as a matter of fact. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm curious to know how a person on the spectrum, if they were to watch this movie, like how they would kind of understand things. So the whole like people turning into animals, I don't think that's a thing. Like, this is my own like thoughts behind it. Like, I don't think that is what happens. That is just a scare tactic. And they possibly do something else with the dead body.
I think
know.
The thing on the internet was like they were harvesting organs. It was like
that makes
theory.
sense.
Yeah.
Like that could, because how the fuck you turn humans into animals? I don't know. Because it didn't seem like that the world that they've created, like we could believe that they could do that. Because they didn't do anything else like completely, unbelievable. It's just that portion of it.
Officers like questioning people on whether or not they're single isn't like unbelievable.
That's not unbelievable.
That's not that.
Turning from human to animal. Again, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, if you're going off the rules of the world, that's the least of the crazy
Yeah,
shit.
like
in
that's
this
literally
world.
just speaking.
That's that's nothing.
But
Well,
like
I'm talking comparative. I'm talking comparatively to our world. Like,
Oh no, I'm not comparing anything to our world. Just like literally their world itself was very, very much just normal world with different rules. And then this whole thing turning humans into animals. Like, what the fuck? They're not witches. I don't know. Like they're so I don't that to me, I was like, no, that's not a thing. They're not really doing that. Because even when they said like explain how they did it, I'm like,
if the whole turning into an animal thing was actually the plot of the movie, then I would maybe agree to you that we could look to some sort of like subtext there or like misleading going on there. But this movie really isn't about that at all, right? It has nothing to do with that process. Like Matt said, they don't focus it on it at all.
That's
They don't
the
show
whole
it at all.
selling point of the movie.
It's
That's
not
the
though.
only
Like,
reason why you watch this movie.
It's the premise
That
of
is.
the movie.
It's the only reason you watch this movie.
I was really waiting for them to show us the whole process of it happening.
And
I was like,
listen, if that's what your impression of the movie was, maybe it's you know, a fault of the synopsis or the trailers or whatever, like how it's marketed. But like this movie like has really nothing to do with them turning into animals. So why they would even have like some fake conspiracy going on in the background, like it doesn't really make sense to me for them to do that. Like really the whole them turning into animals thing is just a means to create a sense of fear, to give this movie a driving point for the characters to do what they're doing in the movie. You know, like whether or not it's actually happening. Like, I mean, I guess sure, if you want to question it, that's fine, but it's kind of pointless too. Like it doesn't add or subtract anything to it, you know.
I
would
would debate that it
disagree.
does, because
Yeah, I
if
would
it didn't
disagree
have
with
that
that.
aspect to the movie, if it didn't have that aspect to the movie, I would not care about the movie.
Sure, but where in the movie do they even make it seem like it matters whether it's happening or not happening?
They talk about it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't ever talk about it not happening throughout the movie. There's never a hint
It's because
of them
they don't know either. That's the thing.
But they don't even question it. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, and I would have liked that part of the movie to have been shown more if it was a bigger thing, as Austin trying to kind of bring up. It would have made for a more weird movie for me to like it even more. I like that sort of weird aspect of these types of movies when they show like just outlandish things like that. Like, who thought of that? You know what I mean? But because it wasn't shown in this movie, then it's just like it's missing just a little bit for me to be like, yeah, I really like that. But definitely, I had a lot of questions throughout. I don't know if I need them to be answered per se. I feel like with these movies, they try to get the audience to question a lot of things, and have your own kind of theory about why things happen, why it ended a certain way, you know, so that it's just really kind of open-ended. And so that kind of can push forward why someone would like it or not like it, right? Depending on how they kind of interpreted what happened. So yeah.
No, yeah, this movie, I enjoyed the first half. The first half is the most interesting part of this movie because it totally switches tones. It switches up the story, I think, in the second half. So the whole selling point of this movie is the fucking fact that they turn them into animals. That's the intriguing part. That's the off the wall part. And the fact that, again, you don't really see it kind of is disappointing because, again, it leaves us to even if you personally believe it is happening and in the rules of the world kind of establish that, it does make you wonder, like, is it actually happening? Because we had the perfect opportunity to see it when he was about to turn the fucking bitch that killed his brother,
the sociopath,
into a fucking animal. And then he goes, oh, well, you know what? Never mind. Like, we did something else. And it's like, well,
so like, why would he play along into it though? Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, because he was a victim of it.
Right. But again, like, show us that, like, because we're just gonna, like, if you want us to just take it, sure, fine, I'll accept it. But at the same time, people are going to question it. Like, that's part of watching movies. You know what I mean?
Like, when that part happened, I immediately thought that's what he was going to do. And then he was just like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So, like, this movie to me, it's very, we live in a society. You know what I mean? Like, it's very kind of up its own ass in like, oh, yeah, this is a commentary on society. Like, why should we, have to find a partner? Why should we do this and that and that? Which I don't remember what 2015 was like, but maybe that was like a hard hitting statement now or then. But now the message that kind of falls flat just because of how independent people are nowadays, how relationships aren't even really that sacred. There's constant talks of people cheating on each other, having side relationships, like what have you. So in that aspect, I feel like this message is kind of like, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, buddy.
I feel like it makes it almost more interesting because like what if we did apply today's society to this rule set? It's like you are now having to force people in a world where everything is a lot more free and a lot more less committal.
But
like,
the thing
what
is, with
if
this
the
movie, commitment
was established on them?
The thing is, with this movie, it sets up that question, like, oh, why should we do this? But then it doesn't really have a resolution.
There's no result.
It just poises the question, and then this movie sets you up on this whole thing, and it doesn't have the gall to have an actual fucking ending. It leaves it open-ended. So it's like, what is the message here? Is it true love doesn't exist? Because everyone that was in a relationship kind of like lied their way to be in a relationship because of the rules of this world? Is that a commentary on society's expectations? Like, is that what that's going for?
I mean, I think it's like the movie is really like, I mean, if you're looking for a resolution, then like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. The movie it leaves it open ended. I think I was personally like, it's, like when I first watched this movie, like, yeah, I was also looking for an end, right? Probably had a lot of the same questions that you guys had. I think that's why I feel like this movie benefits from multiple watches, because you kind of learn to like just be okay with that. Okay. And like, what do we have here? It's
fine,
here?
But it's just why would I even bother watching this movie again? Like, you're not going to answer.
And that's the thing, right? Like, that's fine. If that's where you draw the line, like that's where you draw the line.
And at least,
like for those that do come back, though, I think there is something to be gained for those that do come back. It's just a matter of getting over that hump of why would you want to come back, or do you want to come back? For Landon, it worked. He does want to come back. For
I feel
you,
like
maybe it doesn't.
It would have benefited from having a very specific ending, just so that it would have had that like message at the end of like, that's just what we're kind of searching for.
At least fucking
how would you end? Like, what's the ending? Like, what's a definitive stance?
If he decided to literally blind himself, I'd be like, okay, then I would actually watch it again and be like, okay, why did he do that? Let me see what the message really is. But because there was no definitive ending, then it's like, okay, I'll have my own theories of what this movie could have been about. I just don't know if that's what it was. And that's what makes me so just like empty.
So like, to me, that's
after
why it's like
it?
better that you don't see that, because it's like you come to your own conclusions on if you're the kind of person who thinks he did blind himself, then you're probably an optimist, right? You're somebody that thinks that like, oh, like he did find true love. He is willing to do this for this woman. He just, that's a very life-altering decision, compared to, like, they even mentioned this in the movie where there's some things that are worse than others. Some punishments worse than others.
Yeah.
Like a kick to the leg is better than like I forget the example they use, but like sticking your hand getting crushed or whatever they said, or getting shot. Right. Like that would be the ultimate sacrifice, but there's nothing in his character that would say that he would do that. Right. Like he is very much a coward.
Yeah.
He does things by like just the logical choice. And what is the logical choice? She's blind anyway, so she's never going to be able to really tell. So maybe you just go on, continue lying. And you also see that he's falling out of love with her because the one little tiny surface level thing that they had in common, they no longer have in common. It's not. I think
that's also a testament to having it be so open ended, because you thought that way. I didn't think that way. So I think that it because he did stay with her and actually like help her out of the resistance, if you will, and try to actually bring her into the city and resume their life together. Like that shows me that he did love her. It didn't matter that she was blind. He may have thought about it for a split second of like, when he just stopped showing her objects, like, okay, I'm done with you. Like he may have had that, and who hasn't had that in the relationship of like, I don't know if this is going to work, like, because he actually followed through and actually brought her to the city and then did all the things. And then we end up with the stupid ending of him being like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
But then
just
again,
tell me what he did.
But then again, it's
So I
also
know.
like she probably doesn't even really love him because she was like, why are you blinding me? Blind him.
Yeah, you could have blinded him. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like it goes to the point of like all these things are based off of surface level connections that they have.
Right. So
know?
this is my thing, right? It's just if you're gonna be all hoity-toity and be all smart ass and question why we do these things, give me a fucking definitive answer on where
Just
you
give me
fucking stand. Where you fucking
that's
stand.
what I would have liked.
You know what I mean? Don't let me decide where you stand. You tell me. I'm watching your fucking movie. You're trying to get a message across. You tell me what the fuck that message is. But moving on from even that, there was just no fucking sympathetic characters in this movie. Like I had no reason to give a fuck about anyone. The only thing that you can like maybe sympathize with was his brother dying because that was just so fucking cold. But other than that, is he fucking likable? Not really.
I forgot
Is
to give
she
you guys the
fucking
warning
likable?
about that.
Not
I honestly
really.
I know.
forgot
It's like,
that part
why
even
am I
happens.
seeing dead
No, yeah.
animals?
I honestly forgot that part even happens.
We don't
and
need
then
to
I was like,
see that.
oh, that's right.
I'll see
Yeah.
a person be turned into an animal, but I don't want to see a dead dog.
They could have
Like,
just shown her fucking leg and message received. Got it. The
Yeah,
bloody leg.
yeah,
You kicked
yeah.
the shit out that dog. Okay. Fuck you. But like,
Damn.
there was just no reason for me to care about any of these characters. Because everything was so surface level. It's just like, okay, whatever. Like whatever happens to you happens to you. So, I mean, that's a lot of like where the movie was lost on me. I did like a few things about it though. The cinematography was amazing. Every shot was fucking gorgeous. And I believe they didn't really use any like lighting for it. It was like mostly natural light.
Natural light, yeah.
Yeah, so the movie itself was fucking beautiful. The humor hit hard. The humor was fucking hilarious. All the like the actual jokes where my favorite one is where he kicks the little girl.
Yeah.
He says, look, now you're more like your dad.
Fucking great, dude.
And then when he's bargaining with John C. Reilly's character, he's like, "Oh no, you're my true friend. I only remember
Yeah.
you. You're the one I think of." Like, the jokes were really funny. Like this movie, like I'm hating on like what the story does a lot, but the jokes and the dialogue like really hit for me. That shit was funny. So overall, I thought it was okay. The jokes landed. It was beautiful, but the story itself was just it really wasn't done in an interesting way to me after that second half. That second half I kind of like lost interest.
For me, like, yeah, the movie definitely starts out strong. Like, I think the movie, like, the first half of the movie, I think is great. And, like, I think the pacing is pretty good. Everything like, as long as you're along for the ride, like I said, like, if you get over the barrier of, like, certain things, like the dialogue or whatever, I think pacing-wise, the movie works really well. I do think once he leaves the hotel and we start seeing, like, how the loners live, I do think the movie really starts to, like, slow down for me. It takes its time with a lot of things, and maybe that's, I mean, not maybe, like, I mean, it's for sure intentional, you know, because this is where you start to feel like he's actually developing like a bond with this woman, but at the same time also introducing like the loners society and how they work and how their rules function and how it's just as backwards as the couple's rules. You know, very literal metaphors throughout this part of the movie, like the digging your own grave. I feel like the movie kind of loses its pacing here where it's not as tight. There's probably a lot of things that could have been tightened up or cut, you know. I think a lot of them going into the town was kind of meandering a little bit, you know, like we get it. You know, like to Matt's point, like we live in a society, like it's not as interesting as all the stuff that is happening at the hotel.
I wish it was just in the hotel.
At the hotel.
Yeah, I wish the whole loner society wasn't really introduced because again, even then, it's just like, who made this bitch the leader? Like,
That was one of my questions.
you know what I mean? It's just like,
I was like, who?
if you take all that away and if you just have the impending doom of the 45 days being up, I would much rather watch that movie than get that second
fucking
half.
heartless woman's kill count is crazy. She racked up like 100 something
God.
days.
Yeah, for real.
She was taking motherfuckers out, dude.
She's literally a loner in the hotel because she's not looking for love.
No, yeah. Well, like even like it's like I think the way that her character is
I had a
handled,
question too, actually.
was really funny, really well done. Like just like completely stoic, heartless, like no emotion.
So,
go ahead.
I don't know if they go into this in the movie. I might have missed it. Hotel staff, are they married? Are they with
The,
people?
Yes.
the maid and the old man, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the
And
rest
then
of the staff?
Yeah.
Are they married
the
people?
maid, well, the maid. I don't know if the maid and the old man
Like
were
the
necessarily
waiters and
together, but
stuff.
she's with
the
a
actors?
dentist.
Yeah, I just figured that was him. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So like they're all productive members of society. So it's implied that they have like their couple, because if not, they would be at the hotel themselves as like a thing.
Mhm.
So yeah. So
Okay.
to answer your
I
question.
do have a question about the maid though, because
Yeah, what was
we
their
see
deal?
him shoot her, right? But then there's
Mhm.
also a maid that joins the loners. So I'm like,
That's the same maid.
That's the same maid. He shoots
I
his
thought-
wife, who
oh,
was
I
like
thought she was, like,
the
gone.
host. She was like the
She
host
was-
of the.
She's an undercover. She's
okay.
an undercover.
So I was confused slightly because I was like, I thought she was just gone. Like,
But
she
also,
died,
like,
but whatever.
That is glad you brought up the maid, because it's like, what was her relationship with the loner leader? They had like what was that?
She was like their inside
yeah,
person.
but they were like, when she fucking
But
dies,
there's
a weird
lesbian undertones.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
are
I
kinda
thought I
hinted
had
at.
literally thought that was gonna happen because they glazed on the like homosexuality, because like
Yeah.
him being able to choose if he was heterosexual
That
or
was another
bisexual,
really funny
but that
joke.
was like taken out like I don't know how many years ago. I was like, oh damn, we just got rid of homosexuality just by like removing that as an option.
They got rid of bisexuality, Landon. Homosexuality would still exist.
was still
he just
an
had to make a
option.
choice between.
So you can
that
only
or the
have
other.
two. So you
Yeah.
can only have two
yeah.
instead of the 20
Which-
others that we have now.
Again, like I think it's fucking hysterical because this society leaves no gray in between,
Yeah.
right? Like you would have to be one or the other. So I thought that was funny. I thought that played into
I thought it
the-
was funny too.
the world.
I did. Speaking
ahead.
of the loner leader, though, did anyone else get the vibe that she was one of the random kids given to a couple, judging off her
Oh.
parents? Because her
Mm.
dad was like very, I don't know what he was, but he was very like ethnic. Like he was
Yeah.
like, for lack
was-
of a better term,
She was
he
a
had, like,
redhead
an-
and
he
her
had, like,
parents
an-
were not.
yeah, like
Yeah,
her mom was like white. Her dad had like some sort of accent. So it made me think like, oh, maybe she was one of those random kids given to a couple.
Possibly.
Potentially, right? And like it's never fully explained how the kids work in this, because on the one hand, like we see instances of kids placed upon people, right? And then in other hands, like she asked the undercover girl to make sure she keeps taking her birth control, right?
Mhm.
So pregnancy is still a thing here.
Mhm.
That's again one of those things where like you could poke holes through it, like if you really thought about it or like ask these types of questions. And like I get, like I don't have any problem with people that if they can't get over that or if it doesn't make any sense to them and that's something they hold against the movie, like like who am I to tell you to not look deeper into something? I would just say like with what the movie does give you, looking into that and like how that makes you feel, I feel like is where the enjoyment from this movie comes from for me. Like to agree with Matt, like I definitely think the humor is a high point for this movie. Like there's so many jokes that just hit for me.
Mhm.
And like it's funny because like you watch a lot of like standard comedies, a lot of the jokes are predictable, a lot of things are, you kind of come to expect from like actors, like so for example with the Spirited movie, like Matt was talking about how you kind of know what you're going to get from actors like Will Ferrell and Ryan,
Mhm.
Ryan Reynolds, right? Like you understand the types of humor that they do, the type of comedies that they do and what they excel in. Whereas like I like these kinds of unexpected comedies. I prefer them more. I like John C. Reilly in this role. Like he is very much like a standard comedian. He is in a lot of standard comedies. He plays very specific characters a lot of time. And I like that. I love it when comedians especially like step out of that comfort zone and go into different roles. Whereas this is still a comedy role, but it's very different from any other comedy role that John C. Reilly's played. To your point, Landon, like maybe it even though it is not exactly like other comedy roles he's played, it's still like for a comedy, this still kind of fits him because, a lot of John C. Reilly's characters, if you look at them, they do kind of give Spectrum vibes, to what you're saying about this movie. I think like off the top of my head, I think of like Talladega Nights,
Yeah.
right?
Step Brothers.
So like, yeah, like this movie, I think definitely the humor really hits for me. Like some of my favorite jokes, how they ensure that they are always seeking a mate, like how they do the whole thing where the maid rubs her
the lap
ass
dance.
on their lap,
Yeah.
right? And then like stops just short of them, like
Yeah.
this is
like,
terrible.
just a little
This is
more.
awful. This is terrible. This is the worst. Or how they stick John C. Reilly's hand in a toaster for masturbating.
Yeah.
That was
It's just like fucked
Damn.
up. And it's just like, oh my god. Or like when the lady, the biscuits lady jumps from the first floor. You know,
I know the first floor. I was
from
like,
the first floor to her death. And then the
To her
homeless girl is
death.
like, there's blood and biscuits everywhere. It's like, oh my, yeah, because like I love, like, this movie does so many of those things where it's like this really like hard to watch moment, right, where she's just writhing in pain on the ground, and it's like, oh my god, this is like uncomfortable, juxtaposed with like the heartless lady just being like Colin Farrell's character trying to like get her attention by being as heartless as possible. The humor really hits for me in this. I think the way they approach comedy is unlike any other comedy movie that I've seen in recent memory. You know, like even like since this movie's come out, there's not a lot of comedies that tackle comedy in this way, which I really appreciate. So Matt, like, so your biggest critiques for this movie? Is it like the world building?
It's the world building. It's the tone switch, just completely becoming a different movie in the second half, which again, I hate to keep going back to this, but the whole selling point, the fucking animals, like that's the big thing. And the fact that it kind of gets thrown away and it just becomes a will they, won't they, do they actually love each other, do they not love each other, like fucking Hunger Games shit. Like it's just kind of like, oh, like I wanted it became less weird at that point, you know what I mean? Like it's all the weirdness of the movie is gone, all the quirkiness is gone, and now I'm just watching,
it became a rom-com.
Yeah, like a rom-com,
dark comedy rom-com.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like the absurdist element of it is gone now. And now it's just exactly what Landon said, which is why I kind of felt like the movie underdelivered, because it's like, you're promising me this weird thing and I didn't really get that. Like, yeah, the people are weird, the rules are weird, but the actual movie at that point, not that weird. You know what I mean? So that's where it lost a lot of points for me.
Okay, and then where do you stand on did he or did he not blind himself at the end of the movie?
I was half expecting him to see him just walk past her in the fucking okay, hold on. Speaking of like just interpreting things, when I was reading on this movie, people are so fucking dumb. They're like, oh, she's not blind. She thanked the waiter. It's like, she has ears.
She can hear him.
Like, she has ears.
Blind, you can't hear.
Yeah, like I could hear when someone's coming from my side and be like, oh, hey, thank you. I could clearly hear you're doing something. That was legitimate, like people commenting that and like arguing it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? But
Yeah.
She even makes the comments of like her other senses are
exactly,
heightened.
they spell it
Like,
out for you. The
but
one
she's still
thing they spell out in the movie, it's right there.
Yeah.
I feel like he didn't do it. I feel like he didn't do it because the movie showed us that at the end of the day, these characters are in it for self-preservation, just like the dentist guy. So I personally don't think he does it. So one of the lines he says that I kind of took as him kind of realizing he's not as in love with her is when he's doing his final look with her. She's like elbows, knees, fingers, whatever, right? So that he can see it for the last time. And then she goes, oh, do you want to see my belly button? And he goes, oh,
like,
no, I don't want to see your belly button. You know? Like, to me, it's an intimate body part in a way. And the fact that he was like, nah, I'm good, I've seen it, to me already was the sign that he's not going to do it. Like, he doesn't actually love her.
I mean, there definitely
like
was
that.
a lot leading up to it that also implied that, right?
True,
like him
but-
not playing the blind game with her.
But that's, you know,
It being like 2 days or some shit like that.
But,
It
like,
being
you
multiple
could
days since
argue,
she
like,
last talked to her.
you know, because it's an intimate thing, if he doesn't even have any sexual desires anymore, right? Like, if that connection's already gone, especially in this world, then
Well, I feel like he redeemed himself though, because when he figures out a way to communicate with her, you know, with their love language before, like he just verbally says the actions that he would have done. I thought that was just like, oh, he's trying to, you know.
So to Matt's point, though, that also just goes into self-preservation, right? Because they
Yeah.
still can't openly talk about leaving, you know? So it's him
Yeah, I
basically
don't-
just telling her, like, we're still going to leave and I'm going to blind myself.
but I
So
think that now that he's out, like he's kind of free to
He's-
do whatever.
He still needs her though, because he can't
does.
be in the society without a person. So I don't think he would blind himself, because that's stupid. Because then they both can't see. Like,
that's
he
why I
would
don't
still
think he did it.
He could tell her that he did it, just so
Exactly.
you know. So
And
they
I
can
think
still,
everything they tell you about his character points to that, right? Like, they leave it open for interpretation, so we can have conversations like this where we can say why we think he did it or didn't do it.
We could write the ending for the fucking writer.
Yeah. What's up?
We could write the ending for him.
We choose your own
Coward.
adventure.
Choose your adventure.
Coward.
So that would have been cool. They can reintroduce this movie to Netflix to be able to choose, different things, and then see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
I would like this movie a hell of a lot more.
A lot of the Letterboxd reviews of this movie joke about it being like basically an extended episode of Black Mirror, which I could see. Landon, you're so initially, from how you were talking about it, it seemed like you were saying that you thought he did do it, but it sounds like
no. I was just saying that was an example of an ending, right?
But also, when he runs into John C. Reilly, and he's like, "Oh, being a loner is great. You can masturbate whenever you want. Blah blah blah. Do all these things. There's no one telling you what to do." I mean, maybe he actually meant that too when he was saying that. So maybe like he doesn't give a fuck about having her around or being a part of society. Even he just wants to go back, be a loner, fucking masturbate whenever he wants, not be tied to anyone.
I would definitely say being a loner is probably out of the question, since he basically killed
the leader.
Okay, but then
so now they're
like,
really alone.
Does he have to go back to them? Like, you know what I mean? Is that the only place he can go? Can he be a loner somewhere else?
I mean, maybe.
That's a whole
definitely not,
movie too.
Definitely not the city. They make it very clear that it's hard to get away with being.
But also, so them going back to the city. What was like? Do they just go like, "Hey, we're a couple now. We're going to get married"? And
I think because society's made it very clear, right, that all they care about is that you're in a relationship, right? So if they come back and they say, as long like we're in a relationship, we love each other, like I don't know, do they care? Like, they don't really establish like how that works.
Yeah, because like at the mall, like they kind of touched on it, like
papers, right?
The cop, papers, and then his wife came up, and they was like, "Oh no, you good." Yeah, that was good enough for him.
And at a certain point, all you have to do is just establish like, oh, we're a newly formed couple, we're getting our papers now, right? Something like that. So who's to say?
So the fact that it was that simple for them to just be okay, and he didn't even do it. Like they make it seem like that's not what they did. Tells me that they probably didn't end up together.
It's like he could have just blinded himself. Maybe it's because he was an architect, right? So it's clear that he has money, or at least had some money. I would assume that he still has his money prior to him, unexpectedly getting divorced, right? There would be no reason for him to lose that unless they seized his assets too. But like, you chose the most painful way to fucking blind yourself, like stabbing yourself in the goddamn eye. Like,
stare at the sun, bro.
These loners were able to fucking fund, an eye surgery to blind her. Like, I don't know. I feel like that would have been the obvious choice.
Did they ever say why they even go to the city? Is it just to get supplies?
To get supplies.
Supplies, and then for her, it gives her a way to see her family, I guess, because it's obvious that she misses them.
She's a loner that doesn't want to be alone. Like what?
Yeah.
And like the fact that people form these relationships off of the most surface level, one little surface level thing, like a nosebleed or whatever, but then like they literally Colin Farrell's character, after the nearsightedness shit was gone, he literally couldn't find anything else for them to relate to. I thought it was pretty funny and like interesting. Like obviously they probably have way more things in common, if we're gonna be that surface level. But like this movie walks around that and just says straight up, no, they don't. But Landon, generally favorable towards this movie, it sounded like.
More or less, just because it is a different concept than I've seen.
So this movie starts out with like, I guess what you could call it like a cold opening that is very much up in the air interpretation. I want you guys to give me your best interpretation of what the beginning of the movie is, or what exactly is happening there.
It seemed to, after having seen the movie, right, and understanding what's going on, I figured she was the wife of that animal prior, and that the ex-husband, I guess, did something so that they ended up divorced, so that she had to find somebody, or they both had to find somebody to remarry. She remarried. He clearly did not. And she's mad at him and is like, the fuck, dude. And he kills him.
Yeah. Who chooses to be a donkey though, right? Like
He was an ass.
Dude, I'd
He
be a
was an
donkey.
ass.
I'd be a donkey. I have a fucking collection of little donkeys over there. I'd be a fucking donkey.
So
For sure.
am I to take it that you would choose to be a donkey?
No, I wouldn't choose to be a donkey. I don't know what I would be. I was trying to think about that. What I would be.
Yeah. So that was gonna be my next question. But like, yeah, Landon, I agree with you. Like I feel like it like that seems to be I kind of think what the consensus is online. Like I think what people figure out, unless Matt, you have something else.
No,
that you
I think I
wanna say.
actually read that it was literally just to set the tone of the movie.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, because it kind of does. It kind of
Yeah.
makes the stakes. You know, you hear about this movie like, what the fuck? Oh, like people get turned into animals, and then you just see a fucking random lady just pull up to a fucking donkey and just blast him. You're just like,
How did she
oh,
know that was
shit.
her? That was the right
Exactly,
donkey.
exactly.
Because then the other donkey like turns around like, oh my god, you okay? He's like walking towards the donkey.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, so I
Definitely-
from what I read,
definitely sets the
from what
tone.
I read, it was just to set the tone. So I kind of had like a biased answer already in mind. So
So did you guys put any thoughts into what animal you would want to be? So one of the things that I've like heard talked about is like, so again, Colin Farrell's character is very much logical, and the reason why he chooses to be a lobster is because lobsters kind of embody all the things that our society values, right? Long life. They're blue-blooded like aristocrats, so status. That's his reasoning for picking a lobster, which I thought was pretty interesting or funny. What do you guys value and what animal embodies that?
I also think it is like not contradictory, ironic that he chose a lobster because lobsters mate for life, but he would be a lobster alone for life.
Yeah, and I think that's very much intentional, right? Like I think that's hilarious. Oh, and that they're fertile forever, right? Like even though he'll be a lobster alone, like he at least can still give birth.
he'll be a lobster masturbating whenever he wants.
Well, I even like there's a scene where the blonde-haired girl is right before she's about to get turned. They're asking her what she wants to do for her last day. The hotel manager is like, I would recommend you choose something that you wouldn't be able to do as an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like for example, having sex you'll still be able to do. So I wouldn't advise that. And then she chooses to watch. What was the movie?
Stand by Me.
Stand by Me.
What a sad movie.
Damn.
Landon, how about you? What animal are we going to here?
Oh, I'm basic. I would be a dog.
You're contributing to the
I love
problem.
dogs. I
Landon,
love
you're
dogs. I'm sorry.
basic.
What would
All
I
right,
be?
Matt, bring us home. What are we being?
I got 3 options.
Okay.
One of them is a giraffe. Be tall
Okay.
as fuck.
Right?
Tall
Okay.
as fuck. The other would probably be an elephant because
Yeah.
why the fuck
Wait,
not
what is it?
an elephant?
An elephant. Okay.
But the one I would probably go with is probably some sort of like fucking bird. Just be free as fuck, dude. Just go wherever the fuck you want. Shit wherever you want. Like just fucking live fucking life.
Would you be a parrot?
No. No.
You're still if you're a parrot, we're still gonna hear your lisp, right?
I can't narrow it down to one. That's tough. Because I honestly I want to say dog, but that could go so many different ways.
You actually said mine.
Giraffe.
Like, I would be a giraffe for sure.
Oh,
1000%.
interesting. Wait,
Yeah,
why?
Because we're both yellow and we both have long necks, so like it works.
Cool.
I'm already meeting criteria. And like who really fucks with giraffes? Like they just kind of mind their own business.
I think lions still eat giraffes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
do lions eat giraffes? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Giraffes are still hunted by big cats.
Good thing I'm in Ireland then.
Oh yeah, actually, speaking of which, because there were like animals in the forest that were like,
Yeah.
why the fuck is that in the forest? Like a fucking camel.
Camels,
I was like, what
peacocks,
is this camel?
Flamingos.
Yeah.
So I mean that lends itself to confirming that people do get turned into animals because I think at one point Well,
Or they just
or
release
they just release
fucking
them,
weird
right?
ass
Yeah, you
animals
could be
into the
right about that.
forest.
But at one point, you see the blonde girl, the mini horse that she gets turned into. It's
Yeah,
in the-
she was in the
yeah,
back.
she was in the
Yeah.
With
back.
her long, beautiful hair.
Yeah.
Could have just been a pony.
Yeah, true. That's
They
true
just-
too. That's true. I'm just throwing it
Because
out
it's
there.
not hard to procure animals.
Okay. I do have another fun question then for you guys. What do we think the heartless girl was turned into?
Someone actually said that she was the camel. I forgot the reasoning. Oh, I read it.
She was the camel.
Yeah, I read it, but I forgot where it was. So I can't look it up again. Fuck. I wish I took it down.
Dude, making the choice to turn her into a camel, like
Someone also said
That is-
I think they theorized maybe she got turned into a rabbit. So that she's
yeah,
the
that's what
prey.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
I think a rabbit, because clearly rabbits are like one of the main sources of like hunting of game.
Rabbits
You know?
fuck a lot though. So she's gonna
Or-
be getting some ass.
Maybe a bee, because she likes to inflict pain, and then once she inflicts pain, she dies.
Oh.
Perhaps.
Do you think they keep their personalities? Was that established? that
It's
they keep their
never
personalities?
established. Like it seems very much that they become kind of instinctual at that point.
Hmm.
It does seem like maybe they could keep some of their traits. Like, so for example, they allude to
The brother.
to John C.
right?
Reilly's character having a lisp still as a parrot. The blonde-haired girl gets turned to a horse, and
And you see her
the
hair.
horse
Has
has
her
her hair.
Yeah.
Right, so they maybe keep some of the traits, but
Like you think physical
Whether or
traits
not-
only? Because those are all
Perhaps.
physical.
yeah, maybe. Well, they also make a point to say that Colin Farrell's brother was balding. Right, he didn't have hair in the beginning.
Bald ass dog.
So I mean, the dog did have hair, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know.
One of the reasons why I would want to be a dog is so that I could just be with a companion,
Yeah.
because I would be with a human companion. That'd be great.
Until someone
Ideally.
kicks
Until
me.
someone kicks me to
So,
death.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'd be cool. Someone's taking care of me. We good.
Do you have a specific breed of dog you would be?
I've looked this up, and I would be the like my favorite dog, which is the West Highland Scottish Terrier.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. That's
yeah.
a good one. Yeah, you most likely won't be at the pound. Yeah.
No,
Those
yeah.
dogs- those dogs get bought. And
I'm an
like-
expensive dog.
Yeah.
Obviously, the biggest part of this movie is the humor, right? Like,
Mhm.
Matt, you did mention the cinematography, and I agree with you. The cinematography in this movie
Beautiful.
is fucking beautiful. Did you have a favorite scene? Because there's two that come to mind
just-
that I really
just,
appreciate.
Just shot wise, or just in terms of what it adds to the movie and whatnot.
Maybe both. Whatever. Yeah, like sure, why not?
There was one scene in particular where I think it was the loner leader just talking,
Mhm.
and it was just like a shot of her, but like the bokeh, like in the background was just like so ethereal and just like
Mhm.
beautiful. I was like, that was like a baller ass lens choice, whatever they used there. It just looked, I don't know. There was just something about it that just struck me.
For
hard
those
one.
who don't know what bokeh is, it's like
Yeah, what is
blurry.
bokeh?
It's like
It
the
looks
blur,
Got it.
slightly
like the
blurry.
bubbles, like yeah.
I was thinking
little circles.
flowers.
Not to be confused with bukkake. Bokeh. It sounds
The bukkake
similar.
in the background.
Sounds similar.
Wasn't thinking that at all, but now I am. And that's actually a good point. They say you can only masturbate, but they never say what you can masturbate on. Does that count as
Wait,
intercourse?
if someone like prematurely ejaculated when she was just like rubbing ass on him, like grinding on him, is that punishable?
Maybe, but like I feel like the maids are so good at their jobs that they can
I
like
mean-
they can like tell, you know.
I don't know. It's premature
They
for a
feel
reason. It's
they
called
feel
premature for a reason.
1 centimeter of girth or rise.
They
Done.
couldn't
It's over.
masturbate. It didn't say that other people could do it for them.
Right.
But you have to be certified couple, Landon, because then you get moved to the double bedroom.
Wait, but they can have sex with each other, right? That wasn't forbidden.
Yeah, but I think that has to happen in the double bedroom. They can't happen before they make that next step.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was confused about that, because the biscuits lady was
Yeah.
like offering.
She needed someone to butter those biscuits.
and maybe
bro.
that was like a desperation move, you know, to get him to like agree to be her mate like quicker. You know, is like I would trade you sexual favors. Not, you know, maybe that's still kind of forbidden
Mm.
because like they make it a point to be like, you have to graduate to this next step and then you go to this next step, you know.
I thought that was her trait. That's what I got.
Anal. Yeah, I mean, anal and
because she
blowjob.
was
I mean,
saying
yeah,
just
great.
like she was saying that her husband said, or penis was saying that she was great and whatever. Like,
my defining trait is I have a beautiful smile.
Oh, you know what
good.
joke was really fucking funny was when they were acting the scenes. This
Yes.
is eating
Oh
without
my
a man.
God. Help!
That shit was fucking funny.
Oh,
That shit was fucking funny as fuck.
oh dude. So good. So good. Another funny scene that I think is underappreciated is when John's first trying to impress the nosebleed girl. He goes up to her in the pool and is like, he says something to her like, "Oh, you like swimming?" And then she's like, "Yeah." And then he's like instantly just goes into doing a flip underwater. Like total. Just trying to impress her. We've all seen that guy at the pool or whatever, right? In whatever scenario, maybe not necessarily a pool, but like, you know, the guy that
The show
thinks
off. The showboat.
the show off
Yeah.
thinks that doing this one thing is going
Mhm.
to like impress them or whatever, but it actually looks really lame. In terms of shots, I really appreciated Colin Farrell taking the step during the dancing scene to walk towards the nosebleed girl to ask her to dance. It's shot in slow-mo, it's shot very dramatically, you know, and it just kind of displays his determination in that moment, which I thought was really, you know, it's just a really cool scene, kind of out of place, it kind of just comes out of nowhere, but like I thought it was really well done. Another scene that I thought was really well shot was the first hunt scene where it's all just the
Slow-mo.
slow motion
Yeah.
dark shots, and I thought that was well choreographed and executed really well. Were the darts CGI in that moment? It had to be, right? Like I
Probably.
can't imagine coordinating that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really well done. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, not necessarily a defining part of the movie, but I just think kind of like layers onto the plot, how these people think or like how this world works, is the scene where he is on the bus trying his best to avoid talking to the biscuits lady.
That's a good one.
And like him congratulating himself on like his excuse and him thinking it's a really good excuse, and then her desperate to get his attention. And just that whole scene and how the dialogue works in that scene, I thought was just really well done. Landon, did you have any shots that stuck out to you or any scenes that stuck out to you?
The part when they infiltrate the hotel, and they're basically forcing the head of the hotel couple to basically say that they could live without the other, and then here, kill your spouse. And he's just like, I can do it. I'm good. I can live on my own. I'm gonna kill her. And then it's like, blank. And it's like, okay, now live with this choice. It's like, damn.
Does that mean they separate then? Does that mean they get divorced and they have to be
And
participants?
I'm guaranteeing that was
Maybe they'll
100%
give them a child. They'll be fine.
Maybe.
That's the
Maybe.
one thing out of the ridiculous things that this movie like sets forth. That's the child thing is actually the one that I think gets the point across the best. The ridiculousness of a couple trying to stay together and thinking a kid will save that.
It's
So
gonna
just
solve that, yeah.
staying in this toxic relationship for the sake of you have a kid. I think
So like,
that's
you're
the one
forced.
thing. Yeah, that's the one thing I think that they like nailed in this movie.
Mhm.
As ridiculous as it is of like where the fuck do the kids come from?
Yeah, I was gonna say they
you know
nailed
what I
it,
mean?
but then also there's that
Also,
question.
there is that point, but you know, it actually it's more effective than the animal thing that they abandoned.
God forbid any of us, because we're all in relationships, God forbid any of those relationships end. But how likely, if you guys were to enter the dating world again, use the weight and diameter of various balls as your pickup move, such as the weight of a basketball or a volleyball? Just I don't know, you mentioning that scene really made me think of that and how funny that was, and just like that's what their dinner table discussions are. Colin Farrell's character coming in and just trying his best to ruin it, and then the little girl handing the wife a knife and asking her to kill him so she can go to
Mommy,
bed.
here.
I'm sleepy.
I'm sleepy. Damn.
What do you think the choice was for like
Defining traits.
defining like physical traits, right? So not even just personality traits. The fact that a limp leg guy is
Or like
expected
even
to
people
be
that were born with say deformalities.
Yeah,
or,
why they're expected
you know.
to fall in love over that one common interest, and why do you think this movie focused in on like physical, like,
Well, yeah, I think
the
it's
physical?
just a take on how, as a society, like, it's very superficial. So there are people who, like, pretty people only go with other pretty people, you
Mhm.
know, regardless of
Mhm.
other shit, you know. And I think that's a very real thing that happens, right?
Mhm.
Especially in our world of social media. So I think that's what pretty much that was, at least from
Okay.
what
Yeah.
I took from it.
That's a fair take.
Like, yeah, I think to what Landon's saying, like, I think he really just wanted to, like, how can I make this as superficial as possible,
Mhm.
makes and also funny, but also like kind of just like people form relationships anyway based off of commonalities, but usually it's core values, right? So like
Mhm.
your
It should
view
be.
on your view on the family dynamic, your view on religion, you know, whatever, right? Well, like, what if we remove that whole aspect and we just made it like, oh, I have a limp, which is pretty funny. And then there's like that one scene where Colin Farrell's trying to comfort him, and he's like, "Oh, did you see that one girl that came off the bus
Yeah.
earlier today?" It's like, "Oh," and he's like, "It's just a sprained ankle. She'll be
just a
walking
sprained
normal."
That was really good.
You know, and then that also benefits itself to like how the choice and how he makes them talk, you know, just very straight to the point, no undertones, no nuance, just this is how it is, this is how what I feel, this is what we're doing, and then that's it, you know, leaving it at that.
Was speed dating still a big thing during 2015? I don't remember. This is like extended speed dating, this that hotel experience where you're just very straight to the point, just asking rapid fire questions and just
I mean, yeah, you're expected to basically find
In
your life
45
partner
days.
within a 45-day
Yeah.
time limit, you know.
It's like speed dating plus.
Which I
Yeah.
think is interesting, because even in the movie, like, people aren't really getting to know each other. They're all just trying to find which common trait that they have,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? And so it's like you're really just 45 days of waiting till someone literally comes in with the same shit that you have.
Yeah, you gotta hope
You
someone has
know?
a fucking limp.
Because no one's talking about anything. So
It does make you think, like, are all relationships in this world based off of that, or like are there deeper relationships that exist? You know, we don't know. Like, it's implied that the manager is supposed to have a deeper relationship, right, with her partner. It's implied that they're the best, right? They have the biggest relationship, but then that quickly crumbles, you know.
Mhm.
But to be fair, it was a life and death situation, and he just chose
Self-preservation.
himself.
That's what this movie
You know,
kind of is about.
self-preservation. With that, like, what would you guys give this movie on a score of 1 to 5? 1 biscuit to 1 to 5 biscuits.
bloody biscuits.
Bloody biscuits.
1 to 5 loner bodies.
1 to 5 erections. Unattended to erections. I guess I'll just go first, because I think it's very obvious that I do like this movie a decent amount. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite A24 movie or anything like that, if we're to consider A24 a genre at this point. But like, I definitely enjoy this movie a lot. I think it's very thought provoking. In a lot of ways, but also just like, honestly, even if it wasn't thought provoking to me, I genuinely think it's a funny movie. Like, I really think this style of humor clicks with me, you know, even more so than Swiss Army Man. Like, I think it's funnier than Swiss Army Man, you know. I just think Swiss Army Man was a better movie, but for this movie, I'd give it a 3.
Yeah, I think it's also a 3 for me. It's just it's average. It did definitely make me think a lot. And like I said, I would watch it again to kind of see more and think, you know, further. Yeah, so I think an average 3.
If I think the second half of this movie was a little bit
It's not a
tighter,
high
I'd probably
3.
bump it up. But like,
Mhm.
yeah, 3. Like, what about you, Landon? Is there anything off the top of your head that you could think of that would bump it up a little bit?
If it had a definitive ending, like that, literally would have been like, oh yeah, cool, like solid 3. But for me, it's like low 3. It's just a 3.
So it
you know?
wouldn't
It's
go
not
up
it's not a
to 4 at
3.
all. It would just be a more emphatic 3.
Emphatic 3, exactly.
Got it. For sure. All right, and then Matt, what about you?
Guess loosely comparing it to Swiss Army Man. With Swiss Army Man, didn't know how I felt about it. With this movie, immediately knew where it stood with me. So I gave Swiss Army Man 3. I think I would probably give this one a 2.5.
Okay.
Because it was beautifully shot and because the humor was spot on for me, it gave it that half point. But overall, a 2.5.
Okay.
Which,
So if it had that definitive ending, would that change your rating?
depending on the ending, probably.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, Landon, you're just saying it needs to have a definitive ending. You're not saying what that ending should or shouldn't be. It could be a bad definitive ending.
If it was the ending that you wanted,
The thing is, I don't know what I wanted.
Nobody knows what ending they would want from this, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
what
why
do
I
you
wanted
want
him
out
to
of
give
this?
me one. Just give me an ending.
If you got like a happy ending, would you be good with that? Because it kind of defeats the purpose of the movie. You know, the movie's is kind of tragic, you know. So I don't know if a happy ending necessarily makes this movie
I don't
better.
think a sad ending needs to, or a sad movie needs to have a sad ending.
yeah.
No, 1000%. That's kind of why I think the ending that we got kind of fits, because it is just kind of in that middle. You know,
I guess
maybe.
selfishly, I just wanted to see them both just be together,
So you wanted the happy ending.
just to see how they would
You
navigate
wanted-
life.
you
of
wanted-
either
you wanted-
either being a blind couple or just him lying to her the entire time.
The world,
You wanted
the world wasn't
maid
ready.
to finish you off.
The world wasn't ready for a blind couple in 2015. That was too progressive.
No blind couples, no bisexual
Too
couples.
progressive,
Not
yeah.
happening.
No, if it leaned into its weirdness more than the
Ooh,
first half,
yeah.
then for sure would have gotten higher ranks. But because you only get half a weird movie, half a whatever rom-com
Rom-com.
survival story, whatever that is, it docks some points for me. But I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's just, again, my issues were more so with the world and the setting. But the movie itself was fine for the first half. So
So what does that average out to, man?
it averages out to a 2.8. 2.8 for
So
the
slightly
Lobster.
above average.
Slightly above average, which falls in line for me. Obviously, it's a little low for you, right, Austin?
A little bit low.
2.8,
I
yeah.
said 3 to 3.5 range for me.
I mean, not too far off, but
Not too far off.
Yeah. what about you, Landon? Is that kind of overall make sense
Oh
to
yeah,
you?
because I was on the fence of like 2.5 to 3, but I was just like, it's an average like 3.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the Nosebleed A24 Club. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Nosebleed AV Club. Mine is Nosebleed Matt. Austin's,
My name is Nosebleed Daniel.
Landon's is kuya.kpop. I'm saying it for him this time.
Cool.
We are also, again, on TikTok. So if you want to follow us on that, do that. Nosebleed AV Club. If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, hit us with a review, hit us with a follow. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit us with a subscribe, like, comment, and catch us on the next one. We are trying to reach 12 followers by the end of tonight. So please go on and do that for us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching and listening. Peace.